In the previous session, we have discussed about trigger context variables, and we have discussed what exactly trigger context variables and what is the use, and what trigger context variables that we have in Salesforce we have discussed. And as part of these context variables, we have discussed almost 7 context variables as of now. So basically, trigger context variables are used to check the current status of the trigger. So in order to check or in order to verify the current status of the trigger, we are going to be using context variable, and based on this current context, based on the current status, we can able to indicate which piece of code has to be executed, okay, upon firing the trigger. So we can divide the trigger code into various small units based on the trigger context variables, and we can indicate which piece of code has to be executed and what event we can decide with the help of context variables. Now we have discussed the 7 context variables as of now, like trigger dot is insert, trigger dot is update, trigger dot is delete, trigger dot is undelete, trigger dot is before, trigger dot is after, trigger dot is executing. These are the context variables. Now let's come to the scenario. Here we have the trigger code. We have the trigger code. Now my trigger is firing on lead object. It will fire on 2 events: before insert, after insert. Before inserting the lead record inside the lead object, I want to execute this validation piece of code. And after inserting the lead record inside the lead object, I'm going to be executing this email notification code. This is a piece of code. Now, this piece of code has to be executed on before insert event. This piece of code should be executed on after insert event. Okay. Now, so now here in this case, which piece of code has to be executed on what event, that we can decide. That facility is available as part of this context variables. Now then, how can we inform? How can we inform to that Salesforce boss, please execute this validation code on before inserting the record, and please execute this email notification code on after inserting the record? Then how can we inform? For that reason, we need to check the context over here. Before executing this piece of code, we need to check the context here. Now tell me this piece of code when you want to execute. Before insert. Now tell me how to check whether trigger is fired on before insert or not. Hmm. Context variables. What context variables we need to use now? Trigger dot is insert. That is only for insertion. Is it before or after? Okay. Is before. That means trigger dot is insert and trigger dot is before. That means if the trigger is fired because of insert operation, that too it is about to perform the operation. Then I would like to check the condition. How to check? If trigger dot is insert and trigger dot is before. That means if the trigger has been fired, okay, on insert operation, that too if the trigger has been fired because of before inserting the record, that means before performing the operation, then I want to execute this a piece of code here. Okay, so we are checking the condition. Now, before executing this validation code, I would like to check whether trigger is fired because of insert operation or not. If yes, then the trigger is about to do the operation, then execute this piece of code. Clear? Understood the point over here? Now, tell me this piece of code should be executed when? After insert. Now tell me how to check the condition here. If Hmm. Trigger dot is insert
So
and
and trigger
trigger
dot
dot hmm,
after insert. After,
is after or is
after
before?
is
After.
after.
Right. Now, here we can able to execute this piece of code. That's it. Simple. This is how we can use the trigger context variables. With the help of these context variables, we can able to segregate which piece of code should be executed on what event that we can decide with the help of these conditions. This is the purpose of trigger context variables. Okay. With the help of this trigger context variables, we can verify the current status of the trigger. Based on the current status, we can indicate which piece of code has to be executed over there. Okay. Understood the point over here? Now make a note of this piece of code. Done with this? Now, next one. Trigger dot operation type. Then what do you mean by trigger dot operation type now? What did you understood with this? Basically, trigger dot operation type is an enumeration. That means it's a enum data type which is going to be returning the complete event name on which trigger has been filed. As of now, to know why the trigger is fired, we have checked two conditions. Whether it is fired because of insert operation or not, whether it is about to perform the operation or not. Two conditions we are verifying over here. But instead of doing that here, instead of adding two conditions, just with the help of a single condition itself, we can validate why the trigger has been fired. So, in order to know why the trigger has been fired, because of which event trigger is fired, to know the complete event name, we are using the help of trigger dot operation type. So, trigger dot operation type is a context variable, so which will be indicating that okay, on what event triggers has been fired. So now it is returning that event names in the form of constants. As part of Apex programming, constant values will be always represented in the form of uppercase letters. All the constant format, constant words will be represented in the form of uppercase letters. Constant means fixed, which cannot be changed. Now, in this case, as part of trigger dot operation type, how it is returning that event name. Now let's see. Sorry. Now see, because here this is a return type. Trigger operation is a enumeration. So that here it will be returning the complete event name automatically in the form of the values, because enum will be having a collection of fixed values. It will return those values. Those values are nothing but our event names. Okay, let's see. It is an enumeration data type which can be used to get the event name on which the trigger is getting fired. It returns the event name in the form of constants. Constants as below. Like it is returning the values before insert, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, after update. These are the various event names it returns. Done with this? Now, let's see how can we write this the same piece of code. The same piece of code, how can we test it here? Let me show. Now, in this case, what we are doing, we are firing the trigger on the lead object, which will get fired on before insertion, before after insertion. To check whether trigger has been fired because of before insert or not, we are using two conditions. Instead of doing that, we can use the help of trigger dot operation type. Through the trigger dot operation type, we will know why the trigger has been fired, because of which event it has been fired. So that here, I would like to write the piece of code like this. Now, switch on trigger dot operation type, switch on trigger dot operation type. That means I'm going to be using the context variable trigger dot operation type. I would like to check which will be returning the current status of the trigger in the form of event names in the form of constants. So now I would like to check when the current status of the trigger is before insert. Then I would like to write that piece of validation code. What is that validation code? This is a piece of validation code I would like to write. Now, when after insert, then I would like to write this piece of code to send the email notification. So now in this case, instead of using this two conditions over here, I would like to use the help of a single condition itself. Just we can able to collect that switch statement by using this switch statement, use the help of trigger dot operation type context variable and verify that why the trigger has been fired. Now the operation type is going to be returning the event name on which the trigger is fired. If that event name is before insert, then execute this piece of code. If the event name is after insert, then execute this piece of code. Okay. This is how we can use a trigger dot operation type in order to validate the trigger context. Based on the business requirement, we can able to execute that current context also with the help of this trigger dot operation type. Okay. You can use either previous format or this format. Any one of this you can use. But this is the optimized mechanism over here. Whenever we are writing some multiple events, this is the best way that we can use. Okay. Make a note of this piece of code. Because if it is a switch statement directly, we can use one condition to compare. If you are using normal if conditional statement, we need to use two conditions. That is the syntax. No, no, see. Switch on trigger dot operation type. That means what? Please use this switch statement in order to check the conditions based on this, okay, context variable value. So now, based on the context variable value, we can check the condition. Whenever if this particular context variable value is equals to this, then execute this piece of code. That is the meaning of the statement that already we have discussed during conditional statements. When is the block? Is a condition. When is the block?
So like we used to use loops, like if it is if the field was empty, then don't execute the particular program. and if it's there, then only
That piece
execute
of
the
code we have to write
program.
it over. Okay, here we need to write that piece of code here. Inside that when block, we can able to check the condition. If the field is empty, then we can do some operations over there.
And like when switch on trigger dot operation type when before insert. If insertion is like before is done, then only it is execute.
Right, right. Done with this piece of code. Now, next, the next context variable trigger dot new. So, what do you mean by this trigger dot new context variable? What it indicates? How can we use this trigger dot new context variable? Now, let me explain. Let's see what exactly the trigger dot new context variable. Let me explain. Now, let's see what exactly this context variable indicates. What is the functionality of this? Now, let me explain. For example, I have an account object, which is a standard object. In my account object, we are having so many fields like ID, name, rating, industry, annual revenue, phone, and the facts, like that, so many fields are there. Now tell me, upon creating a new account record, what fields are mandatory in account object? ID field is mandatory. Do we need to pass ID? Name value. The only name is mandatory here. Upon creating a new account record, only the name field is a mandatory field. Remaining all the fields are optional. If you want, we can supply. If you want, don't want, leave it. No issues. But name is a mandatory field. Remaining all the fields are optional. But this ID value will be generating by Salesforce automatically by default once a record has been created inside this. But now my requirement is not only making this name field is mandatory, I want to make sure okay rating also should be required. Industry also should be required. That means these two fields also I would like to make it required upon creating a new account record inside my object. So while creating a new account record, we have to pass the three values now. First one, name. Second one, rating. Third one, industry. All these are three values we need to pass. Suppose if you are not passing any of these field value, either name or either rating or industry, it has to show the message to the user. Record should not be acceptable. This is what my requirement here. So now here in this case, to make sure that rating value and the industry value, I'm going to be creating a trigger. On the second object, I'm creating a trigger now. Now the trigger will be firing on before insertion. Why? Because validation should be always done on before insertion. Okay. Now, like for example, whenever we are going to that shopping mall, they will cross check you first. Security person will cross check you. When? Before entering into the shopping mall or after entering into the shopping mall? Before. Now one more time. One more time also they will cross check. When? Before exit. Okay, before exit. Whenever you are entering into the shopping mall, they will cross check you first. Do you have any such kind of unwanted items like some pistols, bombs, knives, any flammable items, tiffin boxes, bags? They will cross check all these things. Do we have any such kind of unwanted items? If yes, then they won't allow you to enter into the shopping mall. That is one thing. Second one, once you have entered into the shopping mall, then you can do the shopping here. Whenever you are coming out from the exit gate, before exiting that supermarket, before exiting that shopping mall, at the exit gate, security person will stop you. They will cross check that whatever the items that you have in your bag or in your hand, for all those items, have you made the payment or not? They will cross check that. So now in this case, validation should be done on two times over here, before entry, before exit. Okay, two times I will cross check that here. Now here, I want to verify that, okay, validation of the data. When? Before inserting the record. Whenever I'm trying to be inserting some records, before inserting the record inside the object, I would like to check whether the record is holding both rating and industry field values or not. Because anyhow, name is a mandatory field. Along with the name, do we have rating and the industry values are available or not? So now for that one, I have written some business logic here. I written some business logic. So on top of my object, I have created a trigger and I have indicated the trigger should be fired on before insert event, which will do the validations with the help of this business logic. So I'm ready with this complete setup. So whenever you are trying to be inserting some record, my trigger will fire. Now, so now here I'm done with my complete setup over here. Now the setup is ready. Now today, users are trying to be inserting the record. Today, user is trying to be inserting the record. Now, user is trying to be inserting the record. In this case, so this is the record here. There are two records are available here. User is inserting the record. They may insert either one record or multiple, whatever. I'm not bothered about that. For example, user is inserting only one record. User is inserting only one record. Now this is a record name, rating, industry. So now as soon as whenever you are trying to be inserting this record into my object here, at the entry gate of my object, there is a trigger. That means it's like as a security personnel. So now, whenever I'm trying to be inserting the record, so now in front of this object, there is a security person is available trigger, which will fire automatically. It will stop the record. So upon inserting the record in the object, we can use any mechanism also. We can use either page layout also, data loader also, import wizard also, Apex programming also, Visual First Pages also, Lightning components also, integrations also, third-party systems also. Anyone you can use, no problem. But ultimately, you have to come to that object. So whenever you are going to the object, in front of the object, there is a trigger is sitting over here at the entry gate itself. So no chance to escape. You can come up with any manner also. Ultimately, they have to pass through the trigger itself. So that here, so now trigger will be firing automatically in this case. Now, whenever the user is trying to be inserting some new records inside the object here, what will happen? Trigger will not be accepting the record directly. It will stop the record at the entry itself. it will inform to the record boss, please wait for some time, let me do some necessary investigation, let me validate the data here, then I will take the decision whether I can allow you or not. Now, in this case, what it will do, it has to do some validation. For that reason, it is moving this record into a temporary place. It will move the records into a temporary place. Now, this temporary place is called as a magic table. This is called as magic table. Whatever the temporary record that whatever the record I'm trying to insert, the record will be placing inside the temporary memory. So now to hold the records, it is creating a table that is called as magic tables. So now, anybody is aware of databases, Oracle or SQL Server? SQL Server. I think you would be aware of these magic tables. In SQL Server, we are having two magic tables are available. First one inserted, second one deleted. Two magic tables are available in SQL Server. Okay, so now here in this case, whenever we are trying to be inserting the record into the object here, now the trigger will be firing automatically. Trigger will stop the record at the entry. It will move the records to a temporary place to do the validation. Now, concept is very simple. For example, assume that I would like to travel from Amirpet to some Dilshuk Nagar. So we are having metro facility here. Okay, through metro facility, we can able to reach to the destination very fastly without any traffic jams and nothing. So now we are having very good environment inside that. Okay, metro train. So we are having very good air condition also available. So we can able to travel very fastly. So without any traffic jams and all these things. So now I went to the metro station over here. I have collected the ticket also here. Now, whenever if you are collecting the ticket directly, can catch the train? No, we have to cross through the security counter here. Whenever we are reaching to the security counter, now the security person will stop you there itself. Boss, you don't have the permission to enter into that metro station here. Please show me your ticket first. They will cross check you first here. Suppose if it is a gents, directly they will cross check by using some metal detectors also. If it is ladies, they will be having a separate security, area will be available, separate security counter will be available. They will be moving these people to a separate security counter, they will cross check that. So in this case, what happened here, once the cross check has been done, then they would like to decide whether you can allow to enter into the metro or not. So now here in this case here also, now we are having this trigger. Whenever I'm trying to be inserting some records inside the object, my trigger will get fired automatically. The trigger will be stopping the record here itself. It will move the records to a temporary place over here. This temporary place is nothing but magic table. So what do you mean by this magic table? Who will create this magic table? Magic tables will be creating by the trigger. Why the trigger is creating this magic table here? Because now the trigger is migrating the record. It is moving the record to temporary place. Whenever it is moving the record, we need to hold the record here. In order to hold the record, we need a table, right? Yes. Now, to hold the record, we need a table over here. So, the table will be creating by trigger dynamically at a time where this magic table structure, your actual account object structure, both will be exactly matching. Because this record is what? Account record. To hold the account record, we need that account object, right? So that here it is creating a magic table with the same structure as the account object over here. Now, once the magic table has been created dynamically at runtime, the record will be placing into that magic table here. Now, once a record has been placed inside the magic table, now it will be start applying the business logic over here. It will do the validation. Record by record will do the validation. Once all the validations are successful, it will accept these records into the object over here. If any of the record is failed, whole transaction will get rolled back. Okay. Now, once a validation has been done, this magic table will be erasing from the memory automatically. So that simply we can say magic tables are the temporary tables or virtual tables. These are not permanent tables here. These are temporary tables will be creating by trigger. Till how long time it will be available? Till the validation is done, magic table will be available. Once the validation has been done, if it is successful, it will be accepting the record into the object as it is. Or else, if the record so validation is failed, it is going to be cancelling that record operation. Once the record operation has been either success or cancel, automatically it will be releasing that magic table from the memory by default here. So now here in this case here, in this case, magic tables are the temporary tables or virtual tables which will be creating by the trigger dynamically at runtime with the same structure as the actual table in order to hold the records temporarily for some time. So once the magic table transaction, that means validations are done, magic table will be releasing from the memory. Okay. So in that case, in the SQL server, what it is doing, it is creating the table. Once the operation is done, then it will be deleting the table also. Now tell me in this case, instead of creating the table, deleting the table, can we hold this record anywhere in Salesforce especially? Yes. How to hold the records? Now, of course, it is one record. Maybe I will be creating 2 records also, 10 records also. In that case, where we can hold, how to hold the multiple records?
Collections.
Collections. We can use collections over here. When we no need of tables, we can use that collection. What kind of collection? List collection over here. Now, list of what? Account. For that one here, it is providing a magic table list of account. That magic table name is called as a trigger.new. So what do you mean by trigger.new? Trigger.new is a list collection which holds the current context record. Trigger.new. Trigger.new. Trigger.new means it will hold new data, new records, new information. So now in this case here, trigger.new is a list collection which holds the current context data. Current context data means whatever the records you are trying to be inserting just now, those records it will be holding temporarily for some time. That is called as trigger.new, which is the context variable which will be available in the form of list collection, list of account. Why account? Records are account records. Why account records available here? This is because this is the object. Object is account object. The records will be account records. Okay, clear? So now in this case, what we can say, trigger.new is a context variable which holds the current context record. That means latest records in the form of list collection. Okay, understood the concept now? Next. Now make a note of this one. Trigger.new. It is a context variable which holds the current context records in the form of list collection. In the form of list collection. New records, new data, new information. The syntax is list of now. So now as part of this note point, just to give 2 lines of space. For all these four context variables here, whenever I'm giving this note point, just to give two lines of space. Okay. So now we'll come to this note point later. After completion of these four context variables, we'll come back to this. Trigger dot new map, what it means. Trigger dot new already you know. Trigger dot new map means what? In the collection, in the form of
Instead
right,
of list,
exactly,
map
correct,
collection is used.
right. So now trigger dot new map is a context variable which holds the current context records in the form of map collection. That is, previous one will be list collection, this one map collection. Now map collection in the sense how the records will store in the form of what? Key value pairs. What is the
Keys and
key? Key is what?
unique.
Key should be unique. Then in that case, in the record, what is the key? Record ID, right. Record ID will be the key and the complete record will be value over. This is the functionality of trigger dot new map. Okay. It is a context variable which holds the current context records in the form of map collection. Where record ID will be the key and the complete record will be the value. And the syntax is map of ID comma is subject data type trigger dot new map. Here also give the two lines of space. So what exactly trigger dot old and what it indicates? Now let's see. Suppose for example, I'm updating some records inside my object. You know how to perform the update operation here. This is update operation, okay, functionality that already we know during DML statements how to update the records. Whenever we are updating the records here, what we are doing? First of all, we need to collect the records from the object which you are going to update with the help of an SOQL query. So as a step one, we need to write an SOQL query. Through the SOQL query, collect the records which you are going to update. Okay, through the SOQL query, collect the records which you are going to update. What records you are going to update, we need to collect them here. With the help of this SOQL query, we are collecting the records from the object and then we are going to placing them over here. Now, once the records are available in the form of this collection, then what we are going to do, we are going to be iterating the collection. We are getting each record, we are assigning some new values. Once the records has been assigned with the new values for these fields, then we can update this data back to the database over. This is what the update operation we used to do. Now tell me here we are having okay, top collection, we are having bottom collection here. Now top collection is what, bottom collection is what? Which one is old data, which one is new data? Top collection is what? Old data or new data? Old data. That means the existing data over here. Now the bottom one is what?
Bottom is new. New.
New data here, which is having latest information. Now, in this case here, in order to hold this kind of latest data, we are having trigger.new. Trigger.new in the sense, don't expect always new records. It may be new data also, new values also. Even though if you are updating one new value, that will be treating as new over here. So now here in this case, this is the new data, this is the old data. So in order to hold this kind of old record, that means previous context records, we are using trigger dot old context variable. Trigger dot old context variable contains the previous context records. Previously, whatever the values are available for the fields, those will be available over here. In the trigger dot new, it is having latest values. New values will be available here, which we are going to be updating back to the data. Okay, so to store these old records, we are going to be using trigger.old context variable. Trigger.old context variable will store the records in the form of what? List collection or map collection? List collection. Trigger.old map will hold the records in the form of what? Map collection. Here, that's it. Okay, new data, old data. Here, that's it. Okay, now let's see. Trigger.old. It is a context variable which holds the previous context records in the form of list collection. In the form of list collection. Syntax. Trigger dot old, which will be holding the records in the form of list collection, list of a subject data type. Here also just to give 2 lines of space. Now trigger dot old map. It is a context variable which holds the previous context records in the form of map collection, where record ID will be the key, complete record will be the value. Syntax trigger dot old map, which will be holding the records in the form of map collection, map of ID, comma, a subject data type. Yes, we can collect that. By using trigger dot old map, it will be holding those records. Old values we can collect. Yes. Done with this? Now, let's come to the note points of this four. So in this case, here the most important point is in all these four context variables, we have to know in what DML events this context variable will be available. That is most important. So we are having insert operation, update, delete, and delete. The two we have before, after, both. In this case here, trigger dot new context variable will be available in what kind of DML operations? Trigger dot new will be available in what DML operations? Whenever we are inserting some new records, then everything will be new. There is no concept of old, so that always new data. That is one thing. Second one, whenever we are updating the records, what records you are updating? New data. New data we are going to be updating. In this case, in update operation also we have trigger dot. Third one, undelete operation. Once a record has been restored back, then it will be collecting like as new. So that is also the third operation. That means trigger dot new context variable will be available in insert operation, update operation, and in undelete operation. Now tell me, can I use this trigger dot new in delete operation? No. Why? In delete operation, what we are doing? We are deleting the records. What records? Existing records. So nothing new. There is no concept of new. Everything is old data. We are deleting from that object. In this case, trigger dot new context variable will be available in insert operation, update operation, and delete operation. But this will not be available in delete operation. Please remember this point. Okay. This point is very, very crucial upon writing the trigger code. Okay. Now, let's see. Make a note of this one. Trigger dot new will be available in insert, update, and undelete operations. But it won't be available in delete operation. Second, trigger dot new map. Now tell me this is available in what kind of events over here? In what DML operations we have trigger dot new map? Can we use it in insert operation? Yes. Update operation? Yes. Undelete operation? Yes. Okay, fine. Now tell me, can we use this one in insert operations in before insert? Can we use before inserting the record? Can we use this map collection to hold that records? No. Why?
No, it will not have record ID.
Now, record is not yet inserted. That means what record is not having ID. If you want to store in the form of map, what we need record ID. Record ID will be generated when once a record has been inserted. So before inserting the records, that means in before insert operation, we can't use a trigger dot new map. So we can use this trigger dot new map in after insert operation and in update operation and undelete operation in these three. but we can't use it in before insert and in delete operations. Okay, please remember this point. Now, this context variable will be available in before insert operation, update, and undelete operations, but it won't be available in before insert. It won't be available in before insert and delete operations. After insert. Next, third one, trigger dot old. So what do you mean by this trigger dot old? It holds the old data. Now tell me on what DML operations we are using trigger dot old. Now in this operation we are using old data, right? Upon updation. Now upon deleting the records, what records we are deleting? Old records over here. Now can you use this trigger dot old in insert operation? No, we can't use that in insert operation here. Why? Because inserting means what? Everything will be new. So there is no concept of old. Okay. So in this case, this trigger dot old context variable will be available in update operation and delete operation, not in insert, not in undelete. Okay. Let's see. This context variable will be available in update and delete operations, but it won't be available in insert and delete operations. Now the trigger dot new map also same, sorry, old map also same, no change. Old data will be available in this particular events only here. Trigger dot old and old map both are having same context. These are the total 12 trigger context variables that we have in Apex programming. With this one, we are done with the theoretical concepts here. Next one, practical. We'll see from day after tomorrow. Tomorrow you don't have the session on the occasion of Ugadi festival. Tomorrow institute will be closed, so no sessions. And then Wednesday will be having the session through online. Okay, Wednesday no classroom sessions here this week. Only online sessions will be available this entire week. Wednesday we'll see the practical concepts of triggers, how to prepare the triggers. I will show you practically. Slowly we'll make the things complex. Initially we'll go with basic validations and complex validations, complex business logics with SOQL queries, with the DML statements. We will see practically one by one. Done with this? Thank you. Thanks for your
Thank you,
time.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.